Now, joining us today to share his insights on the direction of the Philippine Stock Exchange Index and more is Ed Francisco, the president of BDO Capital and Investment Corporation. Good morning, Ed, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Maiki. Morning.
We may be down and corrections are healthy, but looking at the bigger picture, we saw an article on Bloomberg. Finally, we're seeing consistent foreign buying. Foreign investors have been buying local stocks for 27 straight sessions. This is the longest winning streak we've seen in a decade. What do you make of this milestone?
Yeah, no, it's kudos to the Philippines, kudos to our economic managers and the administration. Long overdue. We're now being looked into. People are coming in with conviction. And this is not just the hot money, the stock market, but even long-term investors in other infrastructure and other deals.
Mm-hmm. In the report earlier, there was an analyst from the U.S. saying that in the U.S. they're in this sort of Goldilocks era. They've entered a regime of lower interest rates, coupled with a strong economy. And we were kind of talking a little bit earlier during that commercial break, and we were like, it's the same thing for the Philippines. Talk to us about this particular sweet spot, us entering this regime of lower interest rates coupled with the fact that our economic figures, our macroeconomic figures are looking good.
Yeah, no, so of course interest rates will spur investments, right? We've seen that already from lending, even just last December it was starting to grow. And then lots of bond deals for conglomerates. And then now that there's been rate cuts, the middle market has been growing also. So that's a great plus because that means they're stocking up for the Christmas inventory, they're expanding, there's capex. And then also the fact that, it's a Goldilocks for us. But remember, our other benefit is elections next year. During elections, there's always a pickup in the economy. So lots of consumer spending, right? Lots of spending from the different propaganda. So that's great. So it will be good for us, and because we're a consumer-driven country, so the companies will be doing well.
That said, would you say that we're well entrenched in this bull market?
I guess well entrenched, yes, it's already very strong. We just see these dips for profit taking, right? But then, of course, it'll be more challenging for the future pickups in the market.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of future pickups in the market, the latest inflation print, September inflation, surprised to the upside at 1.9%. This is the first time in over 4 years, that inflation has fallen below 2%. This gives the Bangko Sentral more room to maneuver with regard to interest rates. They've got 2 more meetings this year, October 16 and December 19. How do you think they're going to move on interest rates?
It really gives a good ammunition for Governor Eli Remolino. So we expect a rate cut, for this next 2 meetings. There's nothing preventing him from doing an off-cycle additional rate cut. But even with that 25, that's a good signal already because it's the market's already factoring that in. And then as long as it's continued to next year, that will mean that bank lending will continue and the equity markets will also thrive.
Mm-hmm. With a rate cut of 50 basis points for the balance of this year, what message do you think is the BSP sending to the market?
Yeah. So the signal that the BSP Monetary Board is sending is that, economy is strong, expect inflation to be tame, and therefore it's time to grow.
All right. Speaking of growth, what are your projections for full-year inflation and GDP?
Okay. The BDO House view, we have several views anyway, but our base view for the year-end, inflation is around 3.3, so it's still within the corridor of the BSP, which is fine. And then growth, we're just a little bit more conservative. We're looking at 5.7, at least as our base.
Okay, that's lower than the government's target of 6
a little lower, but if we're surprised, then that's great for us.
Oh, that's what we want, surprises to the upside. Okay, where do you think that's going to take the PSE index and the peso? We've been seeing some weakness in the peso.
Right. So at least for the PSE index, because we're already close to the 7.5 level, we breached it, right? I think if we can reach 8,000 by year end because of the 2 rate cuts, that's very doable. We're already valued properly. We just caught up. So I don't think we're expensive, but then it just means that you have to select your stocks, no? So that's at least for the index. As far as the peso is concerned, we also have to remember that there's a seasonality. On Christmas, because of our overseas heroes, they send in a lot of the remittances, so the peso will strengthen. We still see that the peso will go back to the 55 level by year end. That's our prediction.
Okay, with a market performing well, are you seeing interest from institutional investors, both on the local side and on the foreign side?
Yes, there's a lot. So of course, in the past, it was really more on the fixed income side because there's a lot of liquidity. Now that rates have gone down and there's an affirmation of the strong growth on the economy, there's now interest again in the equities, which is great. And that's why we're already dusting off some of the plans for our corporates because they want to tap the market again.
Yeah, and they want to tap the market. That's great. They're getting ready. They're gearing up for all the benefits that are going to really come our way in the years to come. Talk to us about the missions coming into the Philippines. This is not just hot money anymore.
Yes. So of course, the hot money is easy to see from the index and the foreign buying. But just for example, I was a speaker in Power Trends. It was an energy conference 2 or 3 days ago. There were lots of foreign interest because a lot of missions, in fact, Japanese, French, even other European companies continue to come in. Yesterday, I was another speaker again in another conference for a French delegation because they want to bring in also their investors. So there is a lot of really interest coming from there. I was also in Singapore 2 weeks ago for the Singapore F1 weekend, but I left before the F1. But speaking on behalf of the Philippines, because there were lots of investors also wanted to understand. So it shows you that there's really belief. They want to come in. They're coming in energy, of course, because it's 100% open. The government has done a lot to open that up. But even in healthcare, in the other infrastructure, there's so much interest. So the question is, we just have to get all these projects ready for them to invest in.
Yeah.
But people are queuing up to invest. So that's a good sign, Maiki.
Fantastic. Now, taking a look at the U.S., there's key economic data that's going to be out. The minutes from the Federal Reserve's last meeting will be released tonight. Tonight our time, followed by CPI, Consumer Price Index, on Thursday, given their potential impact on global markets, especially ours. What's your outlook for the U.S. economy? I mean, everybody's, is it going to be hard? Is it going to be a soft landing? But with the November elections, it doesn't look like the Democrats are going to have any latitude for a hard landing because they don't want Trump. They don't want to give Trump ammunition.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think if ever there's going to be some weakness, it might be a soft landing. Of course, the Fed anyway is really independent, which we respect with this current administration. So I think even if it's a soft landing, that's great. It will not, cause fear among the global markets. It will be strong as usual. In fact, in the past, when the U.S. was so strong, it would pull away investments for the Philippines because they stay there. But now we've seen consistently, as you said, there really is a re-emergence of interest in emerging markets, especially the Philippines.
Fantastic. That means more IPOs, more REITs on our part. Going back to that, some highly anticipated IPOs like Prime Infrastructure, SM Prime's REIT, and GCash were deferred due to the high interest rate environment in the recent years. But that's not the case anymore. How many companies is BDO Capital in talks with for potential IPOs?
Right. No, you're right, Maiki, because in fairness, we already had a healthy pipeline in the past. A lot of them were deferred. So from those deferred, probably around 5 of them already are, revisiting already. We're updating the prospectus. We're reorganizing again with the lawyers, with the accountants. So there's at least 5 of them that we're working in. There's another 2 or 3 that already have called on us. We're already starting meetings because they want to tap the market and they were not even signaling interest before.
I know you have to be tight-lipped about this, but what can you tell us? I mean, the companies that just shelved that are going to continue, those you can name.
Right.
The other ones that you can't name, maybe talk to us about the industries that they're in, how much money they plan on raising, and where they plan on using the funds.
Okay, so at least the ones that already have announced before, we don't even have to mention them. It's just postponed, but with the markets as they are, with foreign interest again in the Philippines, if they list, there's a high potential for success, because they have good stories. But for these new companies that we're working with, one is in infrastructure because they're critical to infrastructure development. They support that. Another one is in food, another one is in retail. So again, relatively consumption driven because that's the strength of the country. But then this one, the first one it's relatively big, could raise as much as up to 7 to 10 billion pesos. The other two are a little smaller, but that's fine. That's their entree into the market because at least once they raise equities, it's easier to do other stuff. In addition, we have trade sales, meaning they might not tap the capital markets, but we're advising them, looking for buyers because at least they're willing buyers and sellers now, so it's good. We're creating a market for that.
Fantastic. Okay, one last question before we go. It's a bit of a tricky one. Manny Villar's Golden MV Holdings is now at the top of the corporate ladder, eclipsing even the C family's holding company and many others along the way. Right now, the stock is at 1,990 per share. It even reached 2,000 prior. Now, with a market value of around 1.3 trillion and a staggering price to earnings ratio of about 1,998. What are your thoughts on this?
Right. Well, we have high respect anyway for the Villar Group. In fact, I was in the PSE with Paolo, the son, Vistaland president. I think it was Monday. We had the listing for the bonds. That was very successful. Golden Haven is unique because it's really a property play, right? It's not earning a lot yet, admittedly, but then that's where the assets are. The thing about the Villars, because they're also very secretive, which I can respect because of where they are, but when I was in the Villar City blessing or opening a few weeks back because they donated the school for UP, which I'm a proud alumnus, 3,000 hectares, I think only 900 of those hectares already in Vistaland, and then the other 2,100 are not yet. And then recently, Billionario announced that 500 hectares was injected. So that 500 hectares is roughly, let's say, at 50 to 100,000 pesos per square meter is easily 250 to 500 billion. So that could have impacted the jump in market value. Admittedly, it's market value, it's potential, but they still have so much more assets they haven't injected. So if you're looking at the land play all over the country, Golden Haven is it, except people don't know much about it. No? So I'm happy for the Villar family, and of course, I work for the SM Group. They're not there anyway to go. They're not really interested in fact, in the Forbes list. If they could, they don't want to be included. They just, they just want to be low. I guess no publicity is good publicity for them. Yeah. So if in the case of the Villar Group, because I guess they're so well known, as long as they inject more assets and people understand what's in there, and they don't expect a dividend yet, but there's price appreciation. So I guess hats off to them.
All right, very interesting take from Ed Francisco on MV Holdings and more. Thank you so much for your time, Ed. Always good to have you.
Thank you, Maiki.
And that was Ed Francisco, the president of BDO Capital and Investment Corporation.